Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're wrapping up chapter 1 with just this last video. And we're in section 1.4. And section 1.4 is titled, Should You Believe a Statistical Study? And the authors present these 8 guidelines with which to make that decision. So let's start by going over the guideline from your textbook. The first one says, identify the goal of the study, the population considered, and the type of study. So you need to make sure that those 3 things are consistent and make sense. 2, consider the source, particularly in regard to whether the researcher may be biased. If the cigarette companies are running a survey on cancer research, we may want to just be a little more cautious of the results, correct? 3, examine the sampling method to decide whether it is likely to produce a representative sample. And we spent a whole section on sampling, so we do know that we need to be careful that that sampling method has integrity. Number 4, look for problems in defining or measuring the variables of interest, which can make it difficult to interpret any reported results. Number 5, watch out for confounding variables that can invalidate the conclusions of a study. Number 6, consider the setting and wording in surveys or polls. Looking for anything that might tend to produce inaccurate or dishonest responses. Number 7, check that results are fairly represented in graphics and concluding statements, because both researchers and media often create misleading graphics or jump to conclusions that the results do not support. And the last one says, stand back and consider the conclusions. Did the study achieve its goals? Do the conditions make sense? Do the results have practical significance? So these are all ways that you need to sit back and look at. Oh, sorry, that was my dog. Look back and decide if the survey makes sense. So keeping those in mind, let's take a look at this question. In a study of 1,200 college students, okay, that's a pretty good size, okay, each one was asked whether he or she was a good person. So we're surveying the whole census in a study of 1,200 college students. I take that back. It's not saying how they were selected, but we're looking at that many students. We're asking them, were they a good person? Determine which of the 8 guidelines appear to be the most relevant. Explain your reasoning. Okay, so guideline 4 is the most relevant. It says good is not well defined and is difficult to measure. Okay. Guideline 3 is the most relevant. Since the study was self-selected, there is a clear participation bias in the study. So self-selected means the participants decided whether they were going to participate or not. I don't think that was in here. It just says that they picked people and asked them the question. Number 7 is the most relevant. The results of the study do not seem to be reported fairly. And we don't even talk about results here, right? And number D says guideline 2 is the most relevant. There appears to be a potential bias on the part of the researchers to show that people do not consider themselves good. Okay, so when I read over these, only A seems to make sense to me. What is good, right? So I think that's why this is not a good study. So There are a number of examples throughout your book about evaluating surveys, and so I challenge you to go through and do more examples so that you'll be better prepared for the quiz and the test. Till later, see ya.